You are looking live at the press pool motorcade right now as President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, is arriving to the federal courthouse. You can see several of those cars getting ready to pull in just any moment. Joe, you were just mentioning exactly where they were near the federal courthouse.
They're going right into the back of the courthouse. They came off of D Street and went around the back. So where David was earlier, where he was sitting, they sort of just went around the back, went around where all the other media were. But as you saw, there was a huge a bunch crowds. There was crowds on each sidewalk. There's crowds, and a lot of crowds. And now they're trying to sort of make sure that nobody is where they're not supposed to be. I've never seen this level of procedure at this courthouse.
Absolutely.
Now, I've been watching this courthouse. I've seen a lot going on at this courthouse. I've never seen this level of procedure. This is an historic day, Jacqueline.
Yeah, we have our chief legal correspondent, Katie Barlow, nearby at the courthouse, as well as our Josh Rosenthal, who is down on the streets, giving us a look at some of the protesters, some of the media out there. But again, this is a live image from the press pool there, giving us a scene of what it is looking like. Again, the former president going into most likely the underground garage that is there off of C Street, right kind of near Constitution, First and Constitution, near the federal courthouse. That C Street, as I have been told, was blocked off earlier. You're looking here at what is most likely the amount of press that are out there waiting for this historic day. Police officers, the law enforcement presence, of course, really amped up following what we saw yesterday. Reports of an active shooter that turned out to be a bogus call, thankfully. But of course, when anything like that happens, we appreciate seeing the response that was put forth. Again, this is all unfolding right now. Former President Trump arrived in Reagan National Airport from Newark. Before that, he was in Bedminster, made a drive to his private plane in Newark before he came to D.C., shortly taking off after about 2:10, got into D.C. about 2:45. We know that drive from Reagan to the federal courthouse in the district can take a few minutes, but not too bad.
Well, it takes no time when you have a full motorcade cutting everybody off.
That's also true. This is his third indictment, 45-page indictment, we should add. Very thorough. Took several months, about a year and a half, actually, I believe, to look into this case. So we are, hopefully going to be able to talk to Katie Barlow here momentarily. We do have Josh Rosenthal as well. He is there at the courthouse. Let's see if we can get out to him to give us a better look at what is happening there on the ground. Of course, as you can imagine, there's probably a lot of protesters, both for and against Trump, who, as he was coming through with that motorcade, may have been trying to, show their support, show their anger against him. Yeah. So, Josh, what did you see out there?
Jacqueline, Joe, I tell you what, in D.C., we're used to heavy security. What we're seeing right now here today, it's up there with any event that we've seen in the recent past. So right now, we're standing along the side of 3rd Street. This is pretty much the intersection of 3rd and C. So the former president's motorcade just drove by and into a back entrance of the courthouse here. What you're looking at now, these are people lined up all up and down 3rd Street. To my left, to my right, it's a lot of media members. You can see some people standing on ladders trying to get a look at this motorcade coming in. A lot of other people are just snapping pictures, trying to figure out what's going on. We passed a woman while we were walking up here who said, "What's going on today?" Right. Who knows? Maybe she was a local, maybe she was in town, but that's kind of the mix of people that you have here today. I'll tell you one interesting thing is I kind of just spin around a little bit just to give you guys a little bit of a different look, see how far this crowd goes. I mean, the front of the courthouse where we were for the last live shot, it was way down there. Just to give you an idea, you have all these people coming out hoping to get a look at the former president or the former president's vehicle. The irony of it, though, is that he's coming in a motorcade. He's going underneath. No cameras in the courthouse. He's going to get processed. He's likely going to leave in the motorcade again. So all these people are out here. There's so much commotion. There's so much excitement. And yet we may never get a look at the guy. Otherwise, though, guys, this is the scene. You do expect it to quiet down a little bit as things get underway in the courthouse. But for right now, lots of people trying to get a look at what's happening and other people just trying to figure out what's happening
going on today
at all.
Let me ask you, can I ask you about these trucks that we're seeing? Were they put there purposely to sort of block people's view? Or is this something else going on.
100%, Joe. It's not just to block people's view. It's also for security, to keep people out of this area. This is actually pretty common. We've seen this a lot before. We saw this after January 6th, certainly, which, of course, goes to what we're seeing in the courthouse now. We've seen it for some of the protests that we've had in D.C. previously, too. So this is not uncommon. This is pretty typical to keep people out, to keep cars out, and in this case, it also just so happens to be blocking our views as well.
Josh, let me ask you about the safety in terms of what we're seeing from law enforcement there in terms of preventing anything from happening where all of this stemmed from January 6th, of course, a really scary day in American history.
Yeah, it's a good call, Jacqueline. You've got law enforcement all over the place. I'm talking turn to my left, you see police officers. Turn to my right, you see police officers. They are everywhere. They've been here for days. There are even more here today. Go right ahead, sir. We're in your way. Don't even worry about it. But they're all over the place. The other thing, too, I don't know if we can get a shot of this. Jesse, can you go straight up? I'm asking Jesse Burkett-Hall to do a lot here. Look at that. That's a drone. That's law enforcement up here. They are everywhere, on the ground, in the sky. They've got this place covered, guys.
From where you were, I know you said you were trying to see if you could see the motorcade coming in. Were you able to catch a glimpse of that at all?
Hardly, because of these trucks. We're basically at 3rd and C, so this is around the back of the courthouse. The front of the courthouse is kind of 3rd and Constitution. So the motorcade did come right past us here, but it's really difficult to see. You've got all these trucks, and you know, some of these other media outlets, they were smart. They brought ladders, presumably got a little bit of a better shot than us, but you guys know this is Fox 5. We like to walk and talk. We're on the move, so all good with us.
Well, you're killing it in that regard. You went from a combat section over here to a more paparazzi kind of looking thing. With you standing there, I see this guy, like this guy is in the truck. Is he the truck driver? Right behind you, right over your shoulder. Is that a truck driver on the other side of the truck in the orange shirt?
Yeah, I'm 99% sure.
And why is the security moving him?
Well,
I need to know what's going on.
Joe, you know who that guy is? That is the guy who's got the best view of this motorcade coming in. We should have sat with him, and I don't think I'll be able to get his attention right now. But later, I'll tell him Joe Claire says hi.
Yeah, tell him he needs to come on the DMV zone.
Go make some friends with that guy, Josh. Hey, let me ask you.
I'll ask him if he got any pictures.
We'll appreciate that. By the way, have you seen, in regards to what you've covered in the past, the amount of protesters? I mean, what does that look like out there? Is it fairly small? Is it pretty large? Give us a sense of what that looks like.
It's a good number of people, but at least from what we've seen, like strictly the obvious protester types, people with signs, people with flags, whatever, it's fewer than we've seen for other events. I mean, this is D.C. We see a ton of protests. This is nothing compared to, I mean, certainly January 6th, but also, you know, the George Floyd protests, whatnot. We're talking dozens of people. We're not talking hundreds of people. We're not talking thousands of people. Now, some of those dozens, they're pretty vocal. We saw a Trump impersonator who was kind of just like photobombing live shots. I'm very happy we have not run into him while live so far. You got a protester right here to my right. So they're out here, but it is not nearly the same sea of people that we've seen previously at big events.
I would suspect that people are tired of having to show up to protest because of so many. It's another indictment after another indictment. They're like, all right, I'm just going to save mine for the big one.
Let's not forget too, guys. The jurisdiction matters. So for the former president's arraignment in Florida, you saw a lot more people than protesters anyway than at least we have personally seen so far here in D.C. and also that we saw in New York for those charges as well.
What about the vibe out there as far as the chatter from people on the streets? I mean, many of these people live and work here in D.C. We see the president showing up here. This is their home. What are they saying?
It's such a mix, Jacqueline, and that is kind of uniquely D.C., right? You've got a ton of media, very D.C. thing. You've got people here, like that protester we just showed you, because of the event, but then you've also got a lot of people who happen to be in town. We talked to several of them over the past couple days. They heard that this was happening here, so they've come on down, and you've got people like that woman that we walked by earlier who literally was saying to somebody, what's happening here today? That's D.C. for you. It's a mix.
Well, I guarantee you, if you stay out there long enough and that crowd stays, they'll be out there selling pound cake and T-shirts any minute. You know they go. Come on, this is D.C.
Joe, you're not lying.